tune in. You might learn something new. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It was a huge weekend for me. I wrapped up Food Media South last night, and I drove back from Birmingham, Louisiana, and I am actually still in the process of traveling back to Lafayette. Coming to you live from the Piggly Wiggly in Hammond, Louisiana.
You're in a Piggly Wiggly parking lot?
Yes, I am in a Piggly Wiggly parking lot in Hammond, Louisiana, to do the show.
Nice.
And the reason why I decided to do it live as opposed to recording everything is because I wanted to get some interviews from the conference.
Right.
And I did. I got some really great interviews that you guys will hear this show. I talked with Chris J., who does tourism for Shreveport-Bossier.
Yeah.
We also talked to Jesse Guidry, who does Lafayette Travel Tourism. So we'll have somebody else from Lafayette's perspective on the conference.
Okay.
And then I also had the lovely pleasure of interviewing Miss Valerie, who did a podcast called, she does one called Hot Grease, and she's from Georgia, and she moved to New York, and we kind of connected. It was really crazy how we met, and we'll talk about that in the interview a little later. But it's a funny story, and I guess like it was meant to be. And that was not Valerie; it's Nicole Taylor.
I was
Sorry,
about
guys.
to say I don't recall a Valerie.
Yeah. I'm very tired, and my anxiety level's a little high from having driven. Like, I've been on the road since noon today, so I'm a little out of it. Her name is Nicole Taylor, and she's a lovely lady, and she does a lot of great culinary stuff up in New York, and she's from Athens, Georgia. So I got to interview her this morning. Let's talk about the food, because the food was amazing. Each year, I get to explore more and more of Birmingham.
Yeah.
And I got in Thursday night, and I went and ate at Bottega, which is a well-known restaurant there. And they do, they have two sides to the restaurant. And we've talked about this on the show before, about there's this increasing trend with chefs, and they'll do a high-end restaurant and then a kind of more casual restaurant. So in this restaurant, they have the very fancy side that serves Italian, Mediterranean food with some Southern influences. And then they have the other side, which is called Baby Bottega.
Baby Bottega.
And they do like pizzas and burgers and macaroni and cheese. Got a pizza from there. It was pretty good. I do like the pizza from Bread and Circus Provisions better.
Mm-hmm.
And I texted Manny Ogillo to let him know who's the chef and owner of Bread and Circus. And he was actually really, he was like, that's a huge compliment because of the chef that's at that restaurant. So for dessert, I ate so much dessert this trip because I was like, I'm on vacation. I'm going to eat dessert at every meal.
That's a great reason.
Fine. Right. Well, so they have a pecan cake on the menu.
Yeah.
And I would normally not ever order pecan cake. I'm not a big, unless it's my grandmother's pecan pie, like not really a dessert I would reach for.
Mm.
Bartender was great. He told me they're actually known for their pecan pie. They sell whole cakes for $80.
Oh, wow.
And he said that people order it for like birthday parties, for anniversaries, and for weddings. Like people will order it for their wedding cake, and it's really popular. And they actually sell a lot of whole cakes.
So how good is this pecan cake for $80?
It was really good. It was like a pecan flour that they used.
Uh-huh.
So it wasn't like super pecan. It was really light. And then it had like a whipped icing on it. So it was really light and refreshing. Like it wasn't super sweet. It was a nice light dessert, as opposed to the chocolate, like over the top decadent desserts that I typically go for.
Uh-huh.
So it was a nice treat. And then the Friday morning, I checked out Alabama Biscuit Company, and I found out about them at last year's conference and decided to go back and try there. Liked it so much, I went back again this morning. The best biscuit. They do a whole wheat biscuit, which you would think, oh my God, that sounds disgusting. No, it's fantastic. I did the biscuit of the day, which had like pork belly on it. It had a Spanish cheese, caramelized onions, a pear chutney, and then it had like a mustard caviar on it. There was a whole lot going on.
A mustard caviar. Oh.
Yeah, it was really good. It was so good that I went back this morning. And then this morning I got the Croque Madame biscuit, and then I got a goat cheese pear biscuit to go, which I have with me in the car, and I haven't got to eat yet. So when I get home tonight, which will probably be around 10 o'clock tonight, I will be chowing down on that before I go to bed. They also do a sorghum latte, which sorghum is popular in the South, but it's not really popular in Louisiana. But in like Alabama and the other parts of the South, it is, and it's kind of just like a sweet syrup.
Oh,
and it was nice because it wasn't a super sweet latte, but it did have a little bit of the sweet to it. They have these great coffee mugs too that just says "Eat a biscuit," and I got a coffee mug. I collect coffee mugs, so I got a coffee mug to
Eat
go
a biscuit, okay,
with me home, and I actually got some of their coffee too. They have a local roaster there that does a coffee called Octane. And Octane kind of reminds me of Rev Coffee Roasters in town. So it's a cool little place that they got going on there. And then last night I ate after the conference, we ate at this place called Post Office Pie. Ooh. And the chef, John Hall, recently moved back to Birmingham from New York. He works at Per Se, and he also works at Momofuku. So pretty well-known restaurants in the culinary world, and he's back in his hometown in Birmingham, and I actually got to meet him at the conference, and he's super nice and really great pizzas. The wood-fired pizzas, thin crust, they make their mozzarella in-house.
Yum.
I got a white pizza. I have half of that also in the car. I'm just glad that my hotel room had a fridge. Yeah. So I could keep all these things handy, you know. So I have a lot of leftovers for next week.
Yes, indeed.
Which will be nice since I haven't been home in like 4 days.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so it'll keep me nice and fed this week. I mean, part of the whole reason I like going to this conference is getting to dine around Birmingham, because Birmingham is great. So I mean, that's part of the love of getting to go to the conference. The conference this year talks a lot about politics and food, and how food should be a way to talk about politics, kind of like bringing people to the dinner table and discussing hot topics that are going on around the world, around the United States, racism, gender inequality, things of that nature. Right. Was what we talked about a lot in this conference, and how it can kind of relate to food storytelling. So it was a pretty interesting conference in that regard. And if you think about it too, they kind of have a point. Like if you're eating a meal, you're breaking bread together. It's kind of neutral territory, and it could be a great place to open up this kind of dialogue. And if you think about like holiday meals, like how, you know, some families, they get like super political. I know in my family it's like that. Like that's when my dad's side of the family, like that's when they love to talk about politics. Yeah. So it was cool that they kind of, you know, that was the kind of the theme of the conference. There was also a really cool panel where Bill Addison, who is the national critic for Eater, and I mentioned him in a few episodes ago because he was in Lafayette. He went face-to-face against a chef, and there's no pictures of him out there. They kind of had like a wall up between them. So, and they were kind of like asking each other, you know, questions back and forth. And it was really interesting to get like both sides' perspectives on what a restaurant review, you know, can do to for a restaurant or to a restaurant. So, great conference. I was kind of on the fence whether this would be my last year going or not, but after leaving, I feel like I got to go next year too. Like I got to keep going and seeing what next year holds. And partially because I want to eat in Birmingham again. Of course you do. Yeah. All right. Well, we are going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to have our interview with Chris J, who does Shreveport Bossier Tourism. So come back to us. It's the Lafayette Food Junkie Show on News Talk 96.5 KPAL.
Well, we just finished up another conference of Food Media South, and joining me now is Chris J. He does Shreveport Bossier Tourism. Thank you for joining me, Chris.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
So this is your second year coming to the conference. What were your takeaways this year?
this year there were so many really interesting and important conversations about race, about gender, about inclusion in food writing, of all the people who have a stake in this, all the people who have a right to be, quote unquote, at the table. And, we got to own up to it that sometimes when we're writing, for example, one thing I learned at this conference is maybe sometimes we need to empower others to tell their story instead of just saying, oh, I want to write this story. Can they write it? Can someone from their community do a better job of writing it than I could, for example? So I'm definitely learning a lot of kind of thought-provoking things about race, gender, and those kinds of subjects.
I liked how they talked about food brings people together, and that's the time that we should be talking about these political topics, because it's the best way to do it. Someone brought up a point about Thanksgiving or holiday meals, how some families, that's when the political talk comes out, and that's when we should be talking about this.
Right. I mean, I remember being told time and again, like so many of us probably have, don't bring up politics at the table, or, don't bring up, your crazy cousin at dinner, and those are the dinner table it should be a safe place for any kind of dialogue, and I think that's what one of the things that you're saying is that we should be having conversations around food. They don't always have to be about food,
right?
But food brings us together. So yeah, I totally agree. Let's have those difficult conversations. It's the only way we grow.
So 3 years ago was my first conference, and I was the only person from Lafayette, and then maybe there was a person from Baton Rouge, maybe two people from New Orleans. Last year we had a much bigger Louisiana presence. This year, two of us from Lafayette, you're from the Shreveport area, and then a lot of people from New Orleans. What has been the biggest thing that people at the conference have asked you about Louisiana, or what you like to talk about Louisiana?
Sadly, the thing that I get asked the most is how far is Shreveport from New Orleans?
Oh, that's everyone. I get that all the time. And just to say this really quickly, I went to the Galleria yesterday because I needed to get a dress, and the sales clerk asked me if Lafayette was where they have crawfish boils.
Right, exactly. So, and you'd be surprised. You'd think Alabama's pretty close, but there is a big cultural gap there. You know what I mean? They're into barbecue, like we're into boudin.
There's a barbecue joint on every block here.
There is a barbecue joint on every block. So, and also, if I'm just being totally honest, a lot of folks don't know really anything about Shreveport-Bossier's culinary scene. And I try not to take that as a slight. It's like an opportunity for me, right? Because they may not know about Herbie K's or Strawn's Pie the way they know about Galatoire's or Commander's Palace, New Orleans really kind of is the star of the show, and I totally understand. I mean, it's one of the most interesting food cultures in the world, but it gives me an opportunity to tell people that, hey, there's this whole other thing that you may not be aware of,
Speaking of Shreveport-Bossier food scene, I had a recent conversation with Jay Ducote because he travels up there a lot, and I am from the Shreveport-Bossier area. However, I do not dine a lot there because whenever I go home to visit my grandmother, I eat grandmother food, which, I mean, it's hard to beat grandmother food. But I've been reading and hearing a lot about y'all's culinary scene, and y'all have a lot of things going on, and Jay kind of suggested some places for me to check out. What are some places that you would suggest someone that was visiting the Shreveport-Bossier area that they should check out?
Absolutely. Number one for me right now would be Key Mexico. This is an incredibly sophisticated Mexican restaurant that does beautiful soups, locally sourced meats. They started at the farmer's market. So this is like a really great example of the farmer's market as economic generator, or, a startup engine. So they started at the farmer's market. Now they've got their own restaurant. It's beautifully designed. The cocktails are great. And the food is just, my wife has cried eating their food. It is incredibly sophisticated food. If you haven't been to Lucky Palace, this is
That's one of the places we actually talked about.
Lucky Palace is whenever I go there, I think there may not be another place like this in America. And I know I know what it means to say that. I'm a food lover. I read a lot of food writing. But Lucky Palace is a Chinese restaurant in the lobby of a hotel in Bossier City that, like every Chinese American restaurant in the world, has $7 lunch specials, but it also has over 2,200 bottles of wine. It's got a Turley wine list that was named one of the best in the country by Wine Spectator in 2015. It is one of the most, absolutely, and I feel comfortable saying this, is absolutely one of the best wine programs in the state of Louisiana. And John Besh agrees. John Besh has been on the record saying Lucky Palace may be it is one of the best in the state as far as wine lists go. And he'll pair you can get, these really, really rare, wonderful wines, and he'll help you select, maybe the duck and steam buns would go great with that, or, the tom yum soup would go great with that wine. So it's really a cool experience.
I was also reading that you guys have a German food truck.
Moni's Brats, yeah. That literally is the last food truck I would ever have thought was going to happen in Shreveport Bossier, a schnitzel truck. If you told me that was going to happen, I would have probably laughed and told you were crazy, but it's taken off, and it's been doing really well because we have a brewery, Great Raft, which has been getting a lot of acclaim for their traditional German lagers. That's all they brew. So when Moni's pops up at Great Raft, I mean, it's basically like a really, really good schnitzel, really good brats, really good German lager to pair with it. It's a cool night out for like $20 or less, I mean, it's a really good cultural eating experience, and it's off of a truck.
Okay, so I'm from Minden, which is not far from the Shreveport Bossier area. You and I talked about Nita's Barbecue last year. Tell my listeners how great this place is.
Nita's Barbecue is incredible because it is truly a roadside barbecue stand. It's called Nita's Drive-In. That's what's on the sign. Beautiful old neon sign that's still there. And I'm not kidding. A barbecue sandwich there is about $1.50 still.
Yeah, cheap.
I mean, and it's not the most. This is not Donald Link level barbecue, but it is good. It is down home, and it is so affordable. And the locals adore it. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes a barbecue place that's not turning over a lot of product can seem a little sad. If you get to Nita's at noon, there are going to be 30 people in line. Oh, and there's no dining room. You eat at picnic tables.
Yeah, that's our Christmas tradition. Mm-hmm. For Christmas Eve, we always get barbecue from there. So it's very much a family tradition to eat at Nita's. There's also another restaurant in Minden that you're a huge fan of that's known for their soul food.
Yeah, Moody's Cafe is the only restaurant in North Louisiana that was included in the really incredible book Road Food by Jan and Michael Stern. And it is a meat and three plate lunch house. Still got those incredible old plate lunch plates with the divided sections, like the little walls, and there are about 1,000 items on the wall. And whatever Miss Esther Moody is cooking that day, she puts a yellow sticker by. It's a really bizarre ordering experience. You look around at all these items on the wall, it's almost like graffiti, and the ones she's serving that day have yellow stickers by them. She makes the best cornbread I personally have ever tasted, and, like a lot of people, she's a woman of faith, and she will tell you, non-ironically, she's not joking, that Jesus Christ came to her and told her that recipe for cornbread. She has told me that a dozen times, and never once has she cracked a smile.
Wow, I need to try this cornbread now.
I mean, she will say she was in the oven. She was in the oven. She was in the kitchen, and she was trying to make the restaurant work. And she said aloud, "Jesus, give me something to make this restaurant famous." And she says Jesus came to her and told her how to make cornbread. She calls it Esther's Heavenly Pan Bread.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So besides promoting Shreveport Bossier tourism, you also do a podcast with your wife. Is that correct?
I do. Oh, thank you for asking me about that. All Y'all is a live storytelling podcast, like The Moth. My wife and I love The Moth so much. We feel like stories are a window into the lives of others. You know what I mean? And we do these events where we get together 6 or 7 of the best true stories that we can find from our community. We record them live, and then we release them as a podcast. You can subscribe to it in the Apple and the iTunes store, or listen to it on our website, allyallblog.com. And that's allyallblog.com.
We ask everyone that comes on the radio show what their death row meal would be. What would be your death row meal? I just put you on the spot. I know.
This is tough, but I know it right off of the bat. And it's not actually a meal. Forgive me if I get a little choked up. But I would really, really love to have the boudin kolaches from the Mesh's Donut King in Abbeville again. They stopped doing them, to my knowledge, the way they used to do them. They were small, just a little piece of boudin tucked inside of a kolache and deep fried.
Wow.
And when I was getting to know my wife, who's from Abbeville, I would go down there as often as possible to see her mom, and to get Meshes. And I have a connection to those kolaches like I have to nothing else. I think Mesh's Donut King, by the way, is, a venerated donut shop. It's a really special place.
Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Oh, my pleasure. It's really been a joy. Thanks for having me.
Well, you never know who you're going to meet in a parking tower in Birmingham, Alabama. And the Friday night of Food Media South, I met the lovely Nicole Taylor in a parking tower, and I basically jumped in the car with a complete stranger and thought it was totally fine. But from that situation, I gained a new friend, and she is an amazing force in the culinary world. She is from the South, but she lives in New York City, and I have the honor of getting to interview her right now. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, no. Thank you for having me on.
So how did you end up in New York?
So in 2008, my husband, who's an amazing designer, got a job in New York City. And we took a risk, left Atlanta, Georgia, and was like, let's leave our comfy Atlanta lifestyle behind. And we moved to Brooklyn, New York, still living in the same exact apartment for 8 years.
That's kind of a big deal in New York, isn't it? Because don't people move around a whole lot?
People move around a whole lot, but I'm like, I'm too old to be doing this, so I'm gonna stay put.
You also have a podcast called Hot Grease, and it was on Heritage Radio Network. For serious foodies out there, you know what Heritage Radio Network is, and you started back when podcasting was kind of just taking shape.
Yeah, 2009. Heritage Radio Network is like in the back of Roberta's Pizza. People love Roberta's. At the time, no one knew about Roberta's. You'd be like, Roberta's? What's that? And they definitely didn't understand the word podcast. So in 2009, I started Hot Grease, and my whole sole purpose was to focus on Southern food and really unheard food voices. I wanted to tell like a different narrative. There wasn't a lot of media coverage happening around the other things that were happening in Brooklyn at the time. There was a serious, and still is, very serious hipster focus, and I wanted to do the opposite.
And so you're from the South, which is known for their food. You moved to New York, which is also known for its food. What has that transition been like for you? And what do you do when you get homesick for Southern cuisine?
I mean, the transition was easy. I'm very much a Southerner, but I'm also a person that's very open. I mean, I like getting to know people, and I like knowing people that are different from me. And in New York City, you can walk out the door and meet a million different people who, may not necessarily be from the United States. Their family may be from the Caribbean, or they may have origins in Europe. And you can walk out the door, walk really to any, or get on the subway to any neighborhood and really explore. So through and through, I'm a Southerner. But I have a spirit that's very open to food and to people. What do I do when I want my Southern fix?
You cook it. I
cook it.
Yeah.
I mean, even though New York right now, everybody's talking about fried chicken. So, we're down here in Birmingham now at the Food Media Conference, SFA's Food Media South, excuse me. And we had fried chicken, and I'm like, oh gosh, fried chicken. Fried chicken is like a huge thing in New York City. And I don't want chicken, but I love to get in the kitchen and cook like a big pot of beans, do some greens and some cornbread. That really just kind of takes me back to home. Skip the chicken.
See, and I'm completely my death row meal is fried chicken. So when they brought out the fried chicken yesterday, I was like, yes. And the fact that it was with tamales, which is also my favorite. I could eat tacos every day, and tacos and tamales every day. So the fact that I got to have fried chicken and tamales, I was super excited.
Well, I definitely agree with you on the tamales and tacos. I could eat tamales and tacos every day. Those tamales yesterday were really freaking good. The fried chicken, it's just, I grew up in the South, and a lot of people in the South, when we had fried chicken, it wasn't a big deal. It was just like, oh, we're frying some chicken, and it was the end. I feel like now it's an event when someone has fried chicken. And it's not, I like to tell people all the time, fried chicken is really an American thing. And you look really at a whole bunch of different cultures, they fry chicken.
This is true. I mean, in Asian cuisine, in Korean, you have the Korean chicken wings, and they're fried, and I see that popping up everywhere on menus in Lafayette.
Same in New York City. Pok Pok in New York City is a Thai restaurant. They have this best Ike's chicken wings. They're sauteed in fish sauce and all this good stuff. They are the best. They are the best. And I'm like, yo, I did a whole, wait, I have to say this. I did a whole zine. I have this project that I do. I do an actual print zine. It's called the Modern Traveler's Green Zine. And I basically focus on a city. So because people are always asking me about fried chicken, I did a zine focus on New York City with an emphasis on fried chicken. And it's in different categories. And one of the categories, I think I have classic, I think I have global, and I have like all these like global fried chicken spots in New York City.
And where can people go to purchase this zine? Because I know there are some places in New York that actually have it, but you can actually go online to your Etsy page. You want to plug that real quick?
Yeah. So if you go to Etsy, if you actually want to find me on pretty much every social media platform, I'm Food Culturist, CULTURIST. Go right on Etsy. I have both of the zines on there. I actually have done a cool collaboration, like these posters that kind of are a nod to Rom culture, and one that's a nod to the moonshine culture. Yeah, the zines are, and if you're in New York City, there's a great indie bookstore called Pioneer Books. They sell the fried chicken zine. So yeah, it's a cool project to get people to stop asking me about fried chicken. Yeah.
I think you should do one on New Orleans. I was actually talking about that with you earlier. Yes, New Orleans needs to be on the list.
Lafayette or New Orleans?
Maybe we could do, you know what? I always get very upset when New Orleans and Lafayette get lumped together. I don't know if Lafayette would be big enough to do a zine for itself, but maybe we could try it. We could do Acadiana, and then that would kind of spread out the reach a little bit.
Okay, let's do it. I'm doing Charleston next. And New Orleans and Charleston kind of have the same vibe. I always say that. So maybe I'll do Charleston next and then come down to New Orleans.
Yeah, we can do Cajun country. We'll do one just on Cajun culture.
And people, this is another thing. It's people assume that the South is the same. So I always get questions about New Orleans. I'm like, they're their own land, guys. I mean, New Orleans culture and Cajun country and Lafayette, all of those places have such a rich and deep and different Southern culture that I know nothing about. I think most people don't know outside of the region. They have no clue.
I was talking with Jesse Guidry with Lafayette Travel about this earlier, that at the first conference I went to, I was the only one from Lafayette, and it was kind of educating people about what was happening in Lafayette at the time, and then getting the questions. You always get asked how far away from New Orleans you are. Like, that's everyone's gauge of where you are in Louisiana is your location to New Orleans. And I think at the time it was swamp people. Like, people would always ask about swamp people because or do you know about that or whatever. And then this time it was funny. I went to a local mall here, and the sales clerk was like, "Lafayette, is that where they boil crawfish?"
Wow.
Yeah. It's nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I need to get down there. I want to see Louisiana outside of Baton Rouge and outside of New Orleans. I think there's so many stories there that should be told.
Yeah, it's there's a lawnmower going on during the interview, guys. It's a completely different culture, and you need to come and experience it, and this needs to be your next sign.
For sure.
Okay, so we need to plug the cookbook really quickly that you just wrote, and I'm going to stop at a bookstore on my way back to Lafayette and purchase immediately.
The Up South Cookbook, Chasing Dixie in a Brooklyn Kitchen, came out this fall. Published by the Countryman Press, their imprint of Norton. So excited about it. 100 recipes. It's really a narrative cookbook about my journey from Athens, where I was born and raised, living in Atlanta, and then moving to New York. And so half of the recipes in there are classic Southern recipes that I grew up eating, and then the other half are influenced by living in New York City. So I have stuff like smoked trout deviled eggs, which totally reminds me of all the awesome New York City delis that I frequented. And then I have stuff like one of my favorite dishes, the raw bok choy salad with peanuts. I'm a huge nut person. So yeah, the Up South Cookbook, it's really It's dope, if I must say so myself.
I like that it's a narrative cookbook too. Those are my favorite kind, with the stories of like why these recipes are important. And those are my favorite kind to read. Nicole, you've actually were my favorite part of Southern Foodways, Food Media South. You were my favorite part. I'm so glad that I got into a random car with a stranger and made a new friend.
I know, right? Those are always the best stories, right? So you got to come to New York City, and I got to come down to Lafayette. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for joining me, and sorry about the lawnmower that's happening in the background. We have just wrapped up another year of Food Media South, and joining me now is Jesse Guidry, who was representing Lafayette Travel at the conference, and it's always nice to have another face from Lafayette in the crowd coming to the conference. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So the first year this is my third year at the conference. The first year that I came, I was the only one from Lafayette, and no one knew what Lafayette was. And I got a lot of questions about the swamp people. That was like the big question that year at the conference. Last year, Lafayette had much more of a presence, and Denny and Katie were here. You were here, and then this year it's you and I again. New Orleans seems to still be like the big presentation from Louisiana, but Lafayette's getting more well known. What do you think about that?
Well, it's definitely nice to have a bunch of other people from Louisiana, specifically New Orleans. I met a guy today that worked at the public radio station out there, and you know, he does podcasting, so we had a lot to talk about. And it's just fun to make those connections with people in your own state. But then it's really great just to kind of widen your network a bit and meet. I mean, there's people from all over here, and so there's a lot of contacts to be made, and a lot of different people doing different things.
Right, and I think that that's one of the great things about the conference is networking and meeting people from all over the South, and then also telling them about how great Lafayette is and how great the food scene is in Lafayette. We talked about with another interview, always getting asked how far wherever city you are is from New Orleans, because New Orleans is the big one that everyone associates with Louisiana. What are some of the crazy questions that you get asked about being from Lafayette?
It mainly circles around the accent. They're wondering where it is,
Right.
I tell them I can turn it on and off as appropriate. But I've learned to over the years. But yeah, for the most part, New Orleans is a really great place for us because we're a hub and spoke for a lot of the smaller towns in and around Lafayette, and that's kind of how I view New Orleans as well. Is most people don't mind driving 2.5,
Right.
3 hours to come visit, and I think we have something to offer that's fairly unique. And so I just kind of keep bringing it back to what it is that we are good at and what we do, and that's our food, music, and our culture, which is it's unbeatable.
Some of the chefs that have come on the radio show have talked about how New Orleans is known for their cuisine, but the cuisine that's happening in Acadiana is really like the heart of Louisiana cuisine. What do you think about that?
Well, I think I'll say this as much about the cuisine about Lafayette because I get asked about it and I talked about it a lot. And there's there's some misconceptions with it. It's like, oh, it's spicy, or I like to correct and say the word is flavorful. But what I like to point out most about our food is that a lot of these chefs are using techniques that they learned from way back that we've had, and they're putting a modern spin on it. Right, so it's not so much like the food that's coming in here. We've always cooked with the seasons down here. That wasn't something that was necessarily new to us. It just got branded and labeled a certain way, and people ran with it. But it's more, I think it's about the people looking at the older style cooking techniques and finding ways to interpret that in a modern setting. And I think that is what we're known for, and that's why our food is so good, is because there's a lot of history behind it.
And it's a lot of generational, like handed down from generation to generation cooking. And there's a great group of young chefs that have kind of taken and embraced that too. And I think that's kind of shining through in our cuisine and what is also getting us some national attention.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
So this is a food conference. Birmingham has a lot of wonderful restaurants out there. What have been some of the places that you've dined at in town that you've really enjoyed?
Well, we were just talking about it. Bottega. Mm-hmm. Went there, had the hanger steak and a little side salad. It was pretty good. And then another one, the name is escaping me at the moment, though. It was this best way to describe it is this hipster gastropub.
Was it the Carrigan's Public House or something like that?
It's right around the corner from here where we're staying, and for the life of me, I can't remember the name of it. It's terrible. I got told the address as opposed to the name of it, and I never really.
That is very hipster. Yeah. There's a bar in New Orleans that doesn't have a sign. You just know the address for it. That sounds very, very on trend.
Yeah, I think that might have been the case, but it was good. I had some chicken wings there, and then we ordered, of all things, a corn dog at the, they said that was what they were known for. So
that was the public house that you went to.
That was really good.
Yeah, can we talk a minute? Because I don't even think I've talked about this yet. The fried chicken from lunch. So this place in town called Little Donkey catered the lunch, and it's Mexican Southern fusion is the best way to describe it. Mm-hmm. I love Mexican food. I love fried chicken, and the fact that I had a meal with fried chicken and tamales just made my day.
Yeah, and they topped it off with some collard greens. It was really good. But I want to point out how that chicken was so crispy, and they fried it off-site and brought it in heating containers. So the fact that it was still crispy and juicy, and they pulled that off, that was amazing to me. I would have accepted it no matter what, because it was cooked very well, and everything was just really well done.
Fried chicken is my death row meal, and that was easily top 5 level fried chicken. It's almost on par with Bread and Circus's fried chicken, which is my death row meal fried chicken. Very close. I loved the sweet lime sauce. It was so good. And the tamales were great too. I love that they did the Spanish rice with jasmine rice, which I was telling somebody at the conference that a lot of my friends are using jasmine rice with their gumbos and with their rice and gravies, and how it works. You wouldn't think that it would work together, and it just kind of works perfectly together.
Well, it's funny you say that. We're going to be having a piece coming out on rice next week. I'm not sure when this is going to air, but so that'll be coming out, and we talk about the different kinds, medium versus long, and then we go into aromatics and different kinds you can experience, and mainly what the preference, and that's always a curious thing for me.
It's almost like make a roux from a bottle or make your roux from scratch, which I've seen fights on porches almost break out over that.
Like, when we did the gumbo series, that was one thing that was really interesting to me, because I didn't know, I knew people were very passionate about the way they made their gumbo, and they had a certain way of doing it. Majority of the people, they just kind of told me, like, man, it's flour and oil. Right. Depending on how you want it, you can, do different proportions, get different consistencies. But for the most part, when everybody, when they have time, they tend to make their own roux, and they are capable of it. But, the nature of what we were doing, kind of filming and shooting, we just went with the jar, and it's not, maybe a little bit of extra love if you make that roux. That's what I'll give it. You just put a little bit of extra love into the meal.
Speaking of these great food series that you guys do, where can people go to look at them?
Call to action. blog.lafayettetravel.com. We're getting ready to launch our new website. It'll be sometime in April, early May. But for now, you go there and check it out. If you look under food, we've covered plate lunch, gumbo, crawfish, and the art of boucherie, which was a fun one as well. And this year, we choose a topic every year. Last year it was food. This year we're focusing on outdoor. And I'm very excited about the stories that are going to be coming out later this year about all that.
And we can't end this interview without talking about the cuisine in Lafayette. And we have so many great locally owned restaurants. What are some of them in town that you love to dine at?
Yeah, well, it's hard to pick a favorite, and my goal is to try to eat at as many different ones as I can, because there's new ones that's popping up, and a great website for that is eatlafayette.com or lafayettetravel.com for some of the recipes from those restaurants. But I usually go through that list. It's a good way to kind of sift through what kind of food you want on a local level. Because there's no chains involved in Eat Lafayette. It's all supporting local. So that's a good place to start. And then you can, depending on what you look for, you can, search for either lunch, dinner, breakfast. It's a really great resource.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Jesse.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Okay, and tell us one more time where we can go to read those blog entries.
Blog.lafayettetravel.com. Or you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at Lafayette Travel.